Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the very best fantasy. God damn it. All right. I don't know how I got muted. Tyler muted me.
It
Tyler,
was Tyler somehow.
don't do that.
What happened?
You muted me somehow.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How did that work?
I don't know.
I muted you. I don't even. You have the control room, not me, Mike. How did I mute you?
I don't know how that worked. All right. I'll go again. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the very best fantasy basketball tools and articles on the entire internet. I've been into the dark web. I've been on private servers. I've been all over the internet. I've been seeing some weird, nasty shit, but I have not seen any fantasy basketball sites better than #basketball.com. Go check them out today. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me as always is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
Michael, it is a fine day, but we have a very special guest today, so I will not take up any more of your time.
We do have a very special guest today. You're absolutely right, Tyler. We have our top Patreon subscriber who, as part of his Patreon exclusive experience, I don't know if we should call it exclusive experience. That seems like way too pretentious for being on the podcast for one episode. But we have one of our Patreons, Adam Hotchberg. What's up, Adam?
Hey, Mike and Tyler. Interesting hype man there. Didn't expect that, but good so far. Basketball doing his thing.
Beautiful. Yeah. Welcome to the show, and we're excited to have you on. We're probably gonna make you answer some very, I would say, inappropriate questions. Put you on the spot quite a bit. Now we won't do too many of those things, but you have been basically killing everybody in the Reddit Can't Jump League. And so how long have you been in the Reddit Can't Jump League? Is this your second year?
So this is actually my first year of any fantasy basketball. So the Reddit Can't Jump League was like my introduction to fantasy basketball. It's kind of a joke. I was like, oh yeah, let's do fantasy basketball with my roommate. And we actually did it. It's been pretty good. I had no idea what I was doing during mock drafting. I was on Fantasy Pros against computers. But it's been going pretty well. I've avoided injuries. I've gotten rid of all my centers and coasting to the D3 league.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, I think I did the exact opposite. I kept all my centers, and I'm not winning too many of my leagues. So this has been a very bad year for me. But hey, for your first year, it sounds like you are doing pretty well. I mean, has there with the Reddit league, what's the setup of that league again?
So the setup is pretty close to like a premier football setup. And there's different leagues, like advanced leagues, farm leagues, and then relegation in a way. So there's, I want to say there's six or eight D4 leagues. So that's 14 team leagues. All of them are 14 team leagues. And there's 8 teams on the bottom. And then I think there's 4 D3 leagues, 2 D2 leagues, and 1 D4 league. And depending on how you place in each of the leagues, you can move up or downwards. And then, so right now I'm in D4, but if I do well enough, I'll get up to D3, maybe even D2. And then I'll get to play against better people and maybe people that actually play the whole season. Because my league isn't that bad. I have like maybe 3 teams that are vacant at this point, but someone else I know has like 8 teams vacant. So
that's bad.
trading is pretty rough over there.
Yeah, like that's the problem with some of those public leagues, and especially in the bigger leagues, like 14 teams, having only like 3 vacancies in a public league and a 14-team league is actually probably fairly average. And I think that might be one of the things that dissuade people who first start out playing fantasy basketball, and maybe they don't get into it the next year because they're like, oh well, that wasn't very much fun. It's hard to find dedicated people to play fantasy basketball, but once you do, you can like Tyler. You're in like a dynasty league that's been going on for like 8 or 9 years, right?
Yeah, that's right. Let me think about it. This is the 9th year, I think. So, yeah, it's going on for a long time, and we've only had one person still drop out to this day, and that was only because he has like 7 kids now.
Well, seven kids. That's it's like 5 too many. 7 kids. What's this guy doing? Well, I know what he's doing.
Apparently, he's doing. But I mean, I don't blame him, man. When he had his like 4th one, he dropped out, and I'm like, man. And they're all like, well, now that he's got like 7, there's one that's like 16 or so. But like every 2 years, he just pops one out.
He should have passed along his team to his oldest kid. Keep it in the family.
Oh, there you go. So hand me down league. All right, I like it.
That is actually in the keeper league that I am in. One of the rules is in the Constitution, which is a living document. This is not a joke. That in case of death or inability to, I guess, mentally be able to manage. Though that's arguable. So I think physically be able to manage your team, you must designate someone to take over that team in order to keep the league going. It's a very morbid rule in the bylaws.
So who's your person, Mike?
I have a friend who is not very good at fantasy basketball, but
did he co-host the #Bulls podcast with you?
He did not co-host. He did not do that. We before the show, Adam and Tyler were having a real fucking laugh about #Bulls, the previous home of the best podcast on the internet, hosted by #basketball.com, for how bad the Chicago Bulls are. And it's a podcast that never really got off the ground, never got any momentum, just like the Bulls' future. It smoldered into the ground like the tire fire that it was.
I still enjoy it. I listen back to both episodes, just enjoying it once weekly.
I would suggest, Tyler, that you get a hobby, but I think we all have a hobby here. And it's good to hear that, Adam, as a first-year player, that you're jumping in. You're really into fantasy basketball. Hopefully you get into some more dedicated leagues, maybe like in a traditional roto league, another head-to-head league. And we got Adam on here to talk about some of the buy lows going around the league, as we do during the week. And we're going to start out with this guard here. He's been struggling for like a month now. And I'm a little surprised by it because he is usually a guy who's ranked in the top 40, top 30. Last year per game, he was 23rd. And that guy's Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton, he is just like, he had that blow up with his coach, and he like kind of came back from it slowly, but just has seemed to never really pick it up. I mean, he always missed 2 games, but like that was really the crux of when he fell off. And he's like obviously still scoring, but really not like really having a bad couple months at this point now. Adam, do you like Chris Middleton going forward into the second half of the season? Like this has to be probably his lowest low. maybe of his last like 5 years.
Yeah, so for Chris Middleton, I haven't watched him too much. He's never really been on my watch list overall. I think when I drafted originally, I was like, oh, wow, Chris Middleton seems good, but didn't actually get around to drafting him and picked DeMar DeRozan for name recognition. And in the redraft league, I was actually planning to get him in the 3rd round, but lucky old Tyler picked him up before I did when I was sleeping. So he got that one, but I'm not too sure. It's just a lot of I don't have too much expertise on outside basketball games. I don't watch too much, but if there's ever time to take a flyer, it's when he's on the downs at the bottom he can be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think he could get much worse than he is currently playing, but that's actually a really good point. Something that I sometimes we forget as people who have played many years, that who's had Chris Middleton on their radar for 4 or 5 years, is that he's not a big name recognition guy. And actually, I think that is to your advantage when trying to buy low from somebody if they don't really have a big attachment to Chris Middleton. And you see he's playing poorly, and they're looking at his rankings, and in the last month or so, he's not even the top 100 in the last month. He would be a great guy to pick up or maybe trade for with someone who might be a first-year player who might not really have any attachment to or value already prescribed to Chris Middleton. Tyler, Chris Middleton, he's got to get better, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that's holding him back is his defensive stats just aren't there this year. I mean, we've known him to be a real good steals player for his career, and he's only averaging 1.1 steals for the season. And, you look at the last month, he's only averaging 0.9, so they're not like they're getting any better. Now, we have seen in Middleton's last 3 games, he's played a little bit better, and maybe that's a sign of things to come. But then again, maybe it's not. Some people are really worried about Middleton, especially once you drafted him pretty high in that end of the second, early 3rd round range. I'm really not at all concerned about Middleton. I think that he's going to get a little more minutes here coming up. I mean, he played 34 in each of the last 2 games, played 33 in the 2 games before that. With minutes is going to come more production, and I have no reason to think the steals won't bounce back to where they were around last season's numbers. So, I think Middleton could take a big boost here in his looking at like his total season value. I think he could take a big jump here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that steal drop off is very, very strange. I mean, he really hasn't averaged less than 1.4, 1.5 in the last 4 years. The fact that he's under a steal right now it just doesn't make too much sense. It's not like he's playing a significantly different role. I know he has a different coach. I don't think that's it. This just seems like a kind of a fairly lengthy slump when it comes to those stats. But hey, steals are fickle. So I'd be more confident in his field goal percentage coming back. And actually it kind of has here, even though he's struggling, than his steals coming back. Steals are a little hard to mess around with. Let's talk about the next guy here on our buy low list. This big man here is the darling of young girls all around the country. Andre Drummond. He's the ladies love Andre Drummond, and lately Andre Drummond has just kind of he's been playing less minutes. He was briefly injured after he got hit in the face, and he's just pretty much just come back from that. But even in that lead up to his face getting all busted open, his scoring was down a little bit. The rebounds, as always, are there, but his blocks had started to trickle down, just like Chris Middleton's steals. So, Tyler, why is he on your buy low list here?
Well, I think that we've seen Drummond have a few spots here where he's been a little rough around the edges, but I think Drummond is. We know what Drummond is. Those assist numbers that we saw last year aren't coming back, right? They're using Blake Griffin in that passing big man role and not Andre Drummond now. But I think that he's a pretty safe, 14 and a half to 15 rebounds, a pretty safe like 16 points a game with probably a steal and a half and a block and a half, which sound like some real good numbers to me.
Yeah, his free throws are always going to kill you. You got to know what you're getting into when you end up with Andre Drummond. But the block and a half, steal and a half type of player is an incredibly rare player. Adam, have you what's your experience with Andre Drummond? Do you like his game? Are you punting anything specific in your leagues, or is he kind of out of your range because of his free throws?
So funny story with that. Because I'd never played before, I always thought punting was kind of silly, which I think in Roto it's a little bit less useful than it is in a head-to-head league. Because head-to-head, obviously, if you can lose one but win 7, that's a lot better than just straight up losing one category for the whole season. So I actually drafted Andre Drummond in the second round because I thought rebounds were really good, which they kind of are, but not to the same degree. But the issue I always had with Drummond was his free throws are so bad combined with other centers that I always kind of went away from that because I'd rather keep a percentage up and then try to get a guy, getting some blocks and steals like Nerlens Noel, kind of fill in that space for my Roto, which is obviously different a little bit than head to head, but percentages are so hard to get up. So I think if you're not in a free throw percent league, you can ship the whole house for Andre Drummond because it's not going to hurt you that much if he misses a couple free throws. But my personal experience, I like keeping percentages up. So Andre Drummond definitely is a good buy low now because you're not going to have him for the whole rest of the season. You're going to have him for a bit of time, so it's not going to affect it too much, even if you are worried about it. But if I were to buy low on him, I'd have to buy him back, and that's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like in a Roto league, every single category is important, and you can get away with maybe being bad at a category or two, but punting a category means you're going to have to get a 10 in a couple. Now, Andre Drummond does present someone who could win you a rebound category, but he isn't like blow you away anywhere else. He's got a good, a solid field goal percentage, but like unless you're punting free throws, like it's hard to keep Andre Drummond on your team. It's really hard to keep Andre Drummond team in a Roto league. Were you able to, you drafted him? Were you able to trade him away?
Yeah, so I actually had I consider it to be the blockbuster trade of the league because no one else does any trades, unfortunately.
By default, it was the blockbuster trade.
Yeah, it was. So I actually traded the same guy twice. I think I told you about it specifically, but so a while ago I traded this guy. Let me pull it up here. I traded this guy, Etwan Moore, who I drafted very late, maybe 11th round, and Garrett Temple, who was a waiver pickup, for Nick Batum, who I thought was really good for my team. Not so much. He just kind of does rebounds as a guard, which, is that really that good? Probably not. But I then traded the same guy like a few months later. Come on. I know it's still here.
See, Tyler, everybody struggles with names sometimes. Your boy Nick Batum is
Batum.
Listen, me and Adam, it's hard trying to learn all these guys' names, Tyler. So stop giving us so much crap.
I mean, that's mostly you. This is probably the worst pronunciation I can have. But so I actually traded him back, Nick Batum, because he drafted in the 6th round, so he probably had some attachment there. And then I offloaded Steven Adams and Andre Drummond, terrible free throw shooters with bad volume, for Buddy Hield, who is kind of on a down low at that point, and then Kyrie Irving before he was averaging like 25 points a game.
That's a very good haul for those two.
Plus, Steph was injured when I had him during that time, so my three-pointers were pretty low in my league. So I really wanted some nice shooters that had good percentages. So I kind of went with an all-guard approach, which has been working out a lot. I've gone up a few percentage points, which is like such a menial thing overall. It's not like I'm going up 300 3-pointers, but it's definitely making progress. I do wish I could see how many total free throws I've shot, but nope, not an option on this website.
Yeah, I think that's not an option almost on almost every site. It's hard to find those totals by the time you get to this point in the year. But that's that's a great haul for two centers that you don't need or don't want. Getting someone like Kyrie Irving back, but he a little underrated, I think, up until recently as well. So that's a very, very good haul. I believe anyway. But now on the flip side, if you wanted to go get Andre Drummond back, you probably could, because he is playing pretty poorly. This is probably the worst he is going to be playing. So in that case, he's a buy low guy. Let's talk about the next guy on this list. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. This guy, I was also surprised to see this guy struggling. Kemba Walker. He has kind of, his shooting percentage has kind of fallen off along with his scoring over the last few weeks. Everything else is pretty much there, but it seems like he's just shooting a little bit worse from behind the arc, and that's kind of hurting not just his 3-pointers, but his points and his field goal percentage. So Tyler, like, we shouldn't worry about Kemba Walker, right? Like, he's Kemba Walker. He's a top 30 player, right? That's got to be right. Did we lose Tyler?
I don't think so. It just shows us he's muted. Maybe he left.
All right.
To get a nice drink of water.
Yeah, we'll give it a second, see if he comes back. This happens sometimes. Hangouts, kind of fucked sometimes. We have to, deal with the technical difficulties. This is all the behind the scenes shit. It's not all fun and games here on the Watching the Boxes podcast.
I know. Once I heard you do a second take on the intro, I was like, wow, this is some big buck stuff.
Yeah, we got high production values. I can hear you
now.
Cool.
All right.
I'll pick it up.
I heard Kemba Walker, and then that was about it.
All right. The spiel. Kemba Walker, he's playing bad. He's shooting poorly from behind the arc. But Kemba Walker, Tyler, is he's a top 30 player, right? We shouldn't be worried about him, even though he's struggling right now, right?
I'm as good as Kemba Walker with a long track record as Kemba Walker has. Everyone takes him down shooting months, 10 games, 12 games is probably all we're talking about here. I'm not at all worried about Kemba Walker.
Yeah, I think when you look at guys who do have name recognition, unlike maybe Chris Middleton, who in the fantasy world does have name recognition, but Kemba Walker's got name recognition in the NBA. Just the general public knows who he is. It's a little harder to buy low on these guys, so you might actually have to package something a little bit decent. I don't think the owner of, or whoever is currently has Kemba Walker on their team is going to look down at their last month's ranking and go, this guy's like a bottom tier player. They know he's a pretty good player, so you're probably going to have to tempt them with kind of like a middle of the road player at the very least. But I think I would be plenty happy to get Kemba Walker in exchange for a middle of the road player. I mean, he is one of the top tier guards in the league and a very, very good fantasy asset. Next up on the list, let's see who's out here. DeMar DeRozan. Adam, this guy, he's your boy. You definitely you drafted him, and he is. What's going on with him? He's struggling. He's not shooting the ball very well. He's scoring a lot less. Like, he's still got his rebounds and assists right where they need to be. All the other stats are pretty much there, except for his shooting, and even his free throws percentage is down. So what do you think is going on with DeMar DeRozan here?
Yeah, so I drafted DeMar DeRozan about third round in both the leagues that I'm in. Just because I know he's pretty good at most things outside of shooting threes, because it just doesn't do that with the pop system. It's mostly Bryn Forbes, Bertrands, and Patty Mills, I guess, that shoot threes on that team. Yeah, so his percentages have been kind of weird lately, and he has been out for the past, I want to say 3 games, or he's been out for a little bit of a while now, just because of knee soreness, and maybe that had something to do with it, but I doubt it. But his free throws have been kind of bad lately, which is something I amply check, considering that's the one stat I care about in this Roto League. It kind of shocks me sometimes when I always look and see that he still is like an 80% free throw shooter. It's just he's doing so bad right now. Well, roughly bad. It's like 2 of 3 here and there, 4 of 7 here and there. Not great shooting stats, but I think he'll always regress back because of he's a good shooter. He gets a good driving up to the rim, so he does get a lot of free throw attempts. So maybe he'll have an off shooting night one time, but he will average it out. As for the field goal percentage, I'm not too sure on what kind of looks he's getting, but he's just been missing the ball a lot. He's had a lot of attempts lately on some longer minute games, and looks like sometimes just has going in. But I think he's still going to regress back, and I guess it's still regression, but yeah, I think he'll be a fine buy for the rest of the season if you can get him low, because they're kind of rough with the name recognition on this one, because DeMar DeRozan's a pretty famous name. But if they're willing to let him go for something cheap, I'd definitely recommend it, because, like you said, his rebounds and assists are still pretty good. He's getting steals and blocks pretty regularly for the past few games. Just those percentages need to get back up, and he'll be the DeMar DeRozan that we all know and love.
Yeah, you must listen to the Watch the Boxes podcast, because we always talk about regressing to the mean. DeMar DeRozan is a fantastic player, and it's not like he's going anywhere. Pop's got him playing about 35 minutes a game, which is something I think people weren't expecting. But in that overall for the entire season, he's still a top 50 player. So he started out the year very, very hot. He's gotten cold over the second half, but as we're saying, we're only like 60% into the season. Still a lot of games left, and I agree with you that I think he's going to regress back to the mean. All the other stats are there, so you're not getting threes with DeMar DeRozan's, but his assists are still up, his rebounds are still up from last year, right where you think they would be as someone who's basically now the point guard due to injuries. I know some of those guys are starting to get back into the lineup. DeMar's still running. They're still running the offense through DeMar. Tyler, this has to be the lowest low for DeMar this year, correct?
Yeah, we've seen it, right? It's really only been this month of January. Like if you look at every other month, he's been really, really good. The good news about DeMar is Pop even said this, right, that he's been playing him a few too many minutes, and that's why he thinks that the knee is acting up, and that he's given him a couple of game break here recently. So it doesn't sound like it's anything serious as far as on the injury front. So I'm guessing he misses maybe another game or two just to get a good rest in. Then Pop's going to unleash him, but he's probably only going to play him like 33 minutes a game. I would guess be my target. And DeMar DeRozan is going to be really, really good. He's probably going to shoot you like 7 free throw attempts a game at like 85%, which is going to be great. He's going to probably shoot over 50% from the field and score a buttload of points.
Yeah. He's got to 100% score a buttload of points. I don't know how many a buttload is, but it seems possibly like a lot of points. You can fit a lot of points in DeMar DeRozan's butt, I'm pretty sure.
Is it crazy to say that he probably averages like 23 a game for the rest of the season?
No, not at all. I think that's definitely doable.
So I think DeRozan's going to be great, and I think the Spurs, especially if they're going to push for the playoffs, which is what they're going to want to do. They're in a spot right now. They're going to be pushing hard to make the playoffs. They're going to have to put it on DeRozan's back a little bit, and yeah, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, he's going to have a strong second half in order to get that playoff, and I like backing those types of guys simply because they're trying hard. They're going to be playing throughout to the end of the season since they're in a playoff race. And so that's another good reason probably to buy low here on DeMar DeRozan, especially if you got a playoff run coming up or if you're in a roto league where every game matters. I don't think you're going to see too much DeMar DeRozan resting for the last 2 weeks of the season when the Spurs are in a playoff race. So I definitely buy low there. The last guy on this list, this one's from Adam, and we're gonna break this one down. Jahlil Okafor, super hot right now. Is this guy really a buy low, or do you think, hey, people think he's a flash in the pan, 3 games, like he's gonna be sitting out before the week is over with? But in reality, maybe you think Jahlil Okafor is actually going to be playing, significant enough minutes to be standard league relevant for the rest of the year. So I'm gonna let you explain this one.
So Jahlil Okafor is definitely how to describe it. So I usually play fantasy football, and we kind of talk about certain players that have really hot streaks, while like a backup running back while the main one's out. You kind of just play them until they stop, and then maybe you want to keep them around just in case they get hurt again or something like that. So this season, it seems like, personal bias here, but it seems like Anthony Davis may be made out of glass bones, breaking fingers here and there, getting some rest,
It only took you halfway into your first season to make your first Anthony Davis is made of glass joke. Congratulations.
Yeah, so especially my friend drafted him number 1 overall, as you probably might. But so Anthony Davis might have injury problems, might want some more rest now, especially if he's going to be traded, which I'm going to ask you about later. That seems like an interesting situation. So do they want to rest Anthony Davis more? Probably not. They might want to run him into the ground, but if Davis himself, still gets injured, still needs more rest in between games, has some knee soreness, which I think was an issue earlier on this season, Jahlil Okafor is definitely going to get those minutes because he is thriving right now. He has a really high field goal percentage, which could be kind of problematic, but if you want to try to sell high on him, you probably could if you think this isn't going to be sustainable. But if you do think, even if Davis is back, that he'll be a good second-string center at this point, definitely think that, especially since Randall's been having issues too, but he's usually played as a power forward when Mirotic is off. But they're all getting shopped anyway, so Okafor might be the only one left at the end of the season.
Yeah, so
keep going.
I actually think this is kind of like a long-term logic where this is the obvious thing would be sell high here, but no one in their right mind is gonna give you a top 40 player for Jahlil Okafor. So this is kind of like a when a guy is playing hot that nobody likes, buy low, not in the sense that he's playing poorly and you can get him for cheap, but you can get him probably for one of the worst players on your team because whoever owns Jahlil Okafor might think that he's going to be sitting out once Anthony Davis comes back in 1 or 2 games. Now that's a risk you're going to have to take, and I think Anthony Davis will be back within the week or so, and then Jahlil Okafor's role, his position here, will drop, I think, significantly. But as you're alluding to, there's a chance that Anthony Davis gets traded, and there's a chance that Nico Mirotic or Julius Randle, maybe they are being shopped at this point. And Jahlil Okafor might be the only one left holding the bag here down the stretch for the Pelicans. And if that is the case, having Okafor stashed in the back of your team, or if you're in a bigger league, like a 14-team league like you're in, he is in play as someone who, even if he's playing 18, 20 minutes a game, would be relevant enough to be rostered. But then you throw in the whole trade scenarios, and you could be looking at a top 60, maybe even a top 50 guy. I don't know if he's that good, but you could be looking at someone who's a top 75, top 60 guy that you could maybe get for nothing, simply because I think people think he is pretty worthless. Tyler, what do you think about the trade situation in New Orleans?
It's a good question. It's going to be really hard to trade Anthony Davis just because a player like that, you're going to want so much for him. And, what team can really offer that? We talked about a little bit yesterday about how the Celtics are basically the only way the Celtics can make a trade for Anthony Davis before the season ends is if they put Kyrie Irving in the trade. And that has to do with a CBA rule that Irving's under a specific contract, and so is Anthony Davis, and they can't have two of those players on their roster at the same time. So, I mean, how many other teams legitimately have the assets to make a run at Anthony Davis? The list is very small. So I'm guessing that one doesn't happen, but if they think they're going to lose Anthony Davis this summer via trade, which probably is going to happen, I could see them trading off some of the other pieces and just going full teardown mode. So that could be a potential case. But as for Jahlil Okafor, we've seen him play 30 minutes a game during his rookie year for the Sixers. He helps you in a very specific way, right? He gives you rebounds, he gives you blocks, he gives you points. He's not very good at anything else other than field goal percentage. So if you need help in those categories, sure, that's fine. I'm not assuming this is going to last very long, though, just because I think Anthony Davis will be on the Pelicans for the rest of the season and will take all those minutes, and Jahlil Okafor will basically be out of the rotation.
Yeah, I think if you are in the Tyler camp of thinking that Anthony Davis is going to be sticking around for the rest of the season, I'm not going after Jahlil Okafor. I don't think unless I'm in a deeper league, maybe even if I'm in something over a 12-team league, he could have some kind of lower level bench type of production that would be worth rostering. But if you're in the Adam camp and think that, hey, a trade's right around the corner, or Anthony Davis isn't going to be coming back, or maybe they're going to play, maybe some fishy nonsense is going to happen where they're sitting Anthony Davis while they're in trade talks, all that other stuff, and you think Jahlil Okafor is going to continue playing 30 minutes a game, then you could buy low from the owner, considering I'm pretty sure most people who picked up Jahlil Okafor off the waiver wire are just waiting to drop him back off onto the waiver wire. So if you think he's not going to be a waiver wire player for a good portion of the rest of the year, it's worth a buy low. This is definitely an outside the box type of risk taking on your buy low, Adam. So I like the outside the box thinking. It's we try to say maybe a little too conservative here. So I like the the random turn that you made us take, and I see your logic. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit.
Wow. Did you coin that phrase?
No, it's definitely not. I don't know where that came from, but I definitely heard that before.
If you want to coin that, risk it for the biscuit could be your thing, man. Don't act like that's not a catchy phrase.
Oh, I know it's a catchy phrase. That's why I say it.
Mike has never heard an expression before in his life. For the most part, if you can say any expression from any movie, Mike will have no idea what you're talking about.
No.
That's fair.
I swear he just watches a lot of dark web television or something.
Listen,
or the Bulls games.
The Bulls games are only being broadcast on the dark web at this point. That's how dark it's gotten at the United Center. It's a very.
I should know that's why you can't say anyone's name, because Stacey King messes up everyone's name too. So that's why Mike can't say anyone's name. He's just saying it the way Stacey King says it.
Yeah, and Neil Funk's even worse. He has no idea what's going on. He's just kind of wandering through life at this point.
It's all coming full circle, Michael.
I think it is. I think that is also it for our Buy Low segment. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really cool to hear from our Patreons. This is, hey, you signed up, you subscribed to get this content, to have the ability to be on the show. And I thought you brought some really interesting stuff to the show. So thanks for coming on. Do you have anything to plug? You want anybody to follow you on Twitter?
No, I think I should be good for that.
You don't want anybody to follow you on Twitter. That's that's a really good choice, actually.
Yeah. The closest that I'll put my Twitter onto here is when I tweet at you with Bulls news, and then I was like, "Hey, Mike, how do you feel about this?" That's about as much as I get to use my.
Yeah, I really appreciate you raising my blood pressure in the middle of the damn day when I should be doing some actual work, and then I have to deal with fucking bullshit in the middle of the day. So thanks for keeping me updated. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
But for real, thanks for coming on. Thanks for supporting the podcast through Patreon. And all you listeners out there, if you want to support the show, go check out patreon.com/watchingtheboxes, just like Adam did, and help support the show. Subscribe if you like what you're hearing, if it's helped you out, whether this is your first season or your 15th. Like, there's always stuff to learn, and we really hope our listeners interact with us so we can learn from them as well. And the best way to do that is to subscribe at patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Tyler, do you have anything to plug?
No, I'll go with no today. I don't.
No, I know you got some articles out there. Tyler's too modest. Go follow Tyler on. I'm not giving you a choice, Tyler. People have to follow you at Tyler P. Watts. He's got a ton of stuff out there. Probably going to be going deep into the trade deadline for the Dallas Mavericks here pretty soon is going to be my guess of what Tyler is going to be up to. And you can follow me at Watch the Boxes, where I will be retweeting other people and not bringing you any original content other than being pissed off about the Bulls and Jim Boylan and how horrible of a human being he probably is. That's it for tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.